А второй не отобрал ничего? Второй что это? В приходе, да? Все? Давайте проще номер телефона.
Excuse me, can you see the TV correctly or do I have to pull the table? It's okay? With the computer? Okay. Great. Great, everything is ready.
Друзья, в общем, мы начинаем. Давайте поприветствуем нашего гостя, он приехал из Франции.
Thank you. I didn't understood, but I think okay. So yes, if we can start, let's go. So thank you everyone for coming here. Today I will just start to know what time is it. Okay. So today, yes, we will talk about Firebase, which is a Google tools that allow you to have a backend without coding the backend, which is a great thing when you are creating a new project or you want to earn some time. So who knows Firebase here? Does someone? Okay, you already know Firebase. 3, 4. Okay, great. So did you already use it, or just you know the name and you? Database. Okay, you use database. Okay. So what we will do today is that we will use most of the main services by creating a chat. If you want me to wait, you just tell me. I can. Okay. So we will create a real-time chat, and we will be able to use most of the main tools. So before we begin, let me introduce myself. So I'm Quentin Lerebours in French, but you can call me Quentin. I think it's easier. I'm working at BearStudio, which is a French company which develops a lot of projects for small companies or bigger ones. And I'm project manager, lead and full stack developer. And you can find me on Twitter right here. So I said that we will develop a real-time chat, but I will just do a little disclaimer, is that we can't develop like a Facebook or Meta Messenger's chat in 40 minutes because there are too much functionalities. A chat is a real complex project, so we will just do the basics to show around the Firebase features. So Firebase, as I said, it's a list of services that you can find here for the most of them. And the most important ones are the functions, which are backend triggers that you can call from your frontend. So backend pieces of code that you can call. Database, which is a data storage. Authentication, which will allow to store users with an authentication system. Storage, which is storage for files like AWS S3, which is the most known, and hosting, which is just like a CDN. So you only have to remember one link, which is the link to Firebase console, and we will go there right away to create a new project for our chat. So here we will say Firebase chat. I won't use the analytics because we don't need them, and while the project is creating, which will take only maybe 1 minute, what we will do is that we will go and check what the chat will look like at the end. So here it is. I already prepared all the UI components. So what we will do is just we will connect things together, and this chat is like you can write a message. When you send it, it's real time. So it means that in another window you will see it real time. There is a list of users in the chat. You can see them right here. I can zoom in if you want. You can see them right here, and there are some admin functionalities like insult banning. So if I say hello cunt, for instance, cunt is not allowed, so the message will be deleted. So this kind of thing, and there is an authentication system which we'll do first. Okay, so now the Firebase project has been created. So we'll go around the different services quickly. So the first one is the authentication. Just one thing I didn't mention. This project with the UI components, it is available online on my GitHub. The link will be at the end. And it used StartUI, which is a project starter that we created in my company, which has a lot of technologies inside, which will allow you to start projects without doing always the same thing as adding TypeScript, having a storybook to document your components, connecting the router, adding a UI library and everything. So I advise you to go and check this project if you want to try to start UI projects quickly with React. So yes, concerning the authentication system. We will get started with it just to have it created, and you will see that we have a list of signing methods we can allow. So we'll allow the email and password service. But there are a lot of other providers we can add, like Google, Facebook, GitHub, Twitter, Microsoft, and everything. So it's great in the sense that you don't have a lot of code to write. You will see it with email and password. It's very easy to use. Then there is the real-time database, which is like a big JSON, which will store all your data. So we'll create it right here in Singapore, and we'll start in test mode, which means that we will be able to write and read without restrictions. So when there will be some data, it will be written right here as a JSON, as I said. Then there is the storage. At the moment, since 2 days, Firebase has an issue with the storage system, so we won't be able to create the bucket, which is like a S3 bucket. But don't worry, we will be able to use the one I created before. So it's just like folders that you are creating and store files inside. Functions, then we don't have anything to set up right here. It's just as I said, backend code that you will be able to execute remotely, and I will show a different backend functionalities. And I think that's it. We created okay. So before starting coding, what we will do is that we will just add an app that will be able to use the Firebase project. So I will create the, let's say, the web chat app name. And now they give me the instructions to create, to initialize the application in my project. So here we are. I will just take this command from the README. So this project is the one which is on GitHub that you can find. There is a README with all the steps we will do during the conference. And there are also different branches which are written somewhere right here with the different functionalities added. And the main contains all the app with all the features. So we will add Firebase to the project. So we'll just add the library. I will stop this one. Okay. It doesn't want to copy it. Okay, I think this terminal is. Okay, so we just have to add the Firebase dependency to the project, and then what we have to do is just copy this configuration that contains like the different links to the services like database, authentication, and so on, and initialize the app using the Firebase/app initialize app function. So I will just copy this. And I will put it in a Firebase.ts file I created. So here it is. I will just copy that and uncomment this piece of code. So here I'm just checking that there are not already an app which is initialized. And I will initialize app. So this is the only thing you have to do to be able to use your Firebase project in the front end. And then obviously you have to call this piece of code. So I will import constant/Firebase. So I will just import the file so that it will be executed when we are running our front end application. So let's go. I'm running the app. Okay, so the first thing we will do in this coding section is that we will register a user. So for that, it's pretty simple. So we'll go to the page register, which is the component which is showing this piece of code. And what we will do is that we will start to import a few Firebase functions that we'll have to use. So we'll import them from Firebase./auth, and what we will import is just a function which is called create user with email and password. So it says everything, and the getAuth function. And in the create account function, which is called when we press register, we will first create the user in the authentication system. So for that, we will just call our create user with email and password, which take 3 parameters. The first is the auth module. So I will just call getAuth, and then the email and the password, form values.email and form values.password. And basically, that's all I need to have to create a user, and Firebase will do every checks for me. It will check if the user already exists, and in this case, it will throw an error, and it will, this is why I will uncomment this. It will throw an error, which will have a code and a message. So can you see it clearly, or do I have to zoom in a little more? Okay. Is it great? Okay. So it will contain a code and a message. The code, for instance, it can be auth/email already in use, which will say that, yeah, Firebase is doing all the checks for us, and we'll just have to check which error. For instance, it will say if the password is not strong enough, and all these kind of checks. And you, on the documentation, you can see the list of errors that are available. So this function, it is returning a promise that contains a user credential, which is the information about the user that has been created. And what we will do is that we will declare that the user is the user credential.user, which contains really the user information. And we will just log it so that we can see in the front end if the user has been created. And then I will call setIsSuccess, which is a function available in StartUI, the front-end starter, which will just change the UI from the form to a success message. So once done, if there is no error when awaiting this function, then we are in success case. So let's try this. So I will create an account named Quentin with Q. And for the moment, we won't manage the file. I will create the account, and that's okay. As you can see here, I don't know if I can zoom in. Yeah, I can zoom in. We have the user right here that contains a few informations like the email we just created. Obviously, we don't see the password because Firebase does this for us, so we don't have to manage the whole password, hashing, something, and everything. It created a UID for this user, which is like his unique identifier in the project. And we can see that if we go back to the console, in the authentication system, our user has been created right here. So now we already created a user just using this function. So let's go to the next thing we will do. We will allow this user to log in. So we'll import other functions, which are from Firebase/auth. And what we will import is not the create user with email and password, but singing with email and password, and still the getOut function. So we'll do exactly the same. We'll call the singing with email and password with the getOut as the first parameter. We'll give the form values.email and form values.password. And one more time, Firebase will do everything for us. It will check if the password is the right one and if the account already exists or not. So it's the same. It returns a promise with user credential. So what I will do is just that I will do exactly the same. I will get the user and I will set it. I will just set and I will log it. So, and same, it returns errors with different codes. So here I'm just showing a toast saying, okay, it's an error of login. So we will try. So I will try to log in with a wrong mail. And yes, Firebase is returning an error with auth. And yes, Firebase is returning an error with auth/